Tariro Chapter 5, The Long Roads. By the time winter arrived in Zivhu village, Tariro's life had become a cycle of endless work, hunger, and loneliness. The bright little girl who once dreamed of becoming a lawyer now spent her days carrying heavy buckets, washing clothes, and running errands from sunrise until late at night. Her hands had become rough. Her feet were covered with cracks from walking barefoot on hot roads and cold gravel. Even her laughter had disappeared. Every morning Lucia found new ways to make the child suffer. Tariro, go fetch water. Tariro, wash these blankets. Tariro, sweep the yard again. Nothing she did was ever enough. If the floor still carried dust, Lucia shouted. If the food had too much salt, Lucia shouted. If the chickens escaped the yard, Lucia shouted even louder. Sometimes Tariro wondered if her aunt hated her simply for being alive. One Saturday morning, Lucia entered the kitchen carrying a small shopping list. Tariro, she said sharply, go to Namamwa shops and buy these things. The girl looked at the paper quietly. Salt, cooking oil, matches, tomatoes. Her heart sank immediately. Namamwa was far from the village. The journey there and back would take hours on foot. Can I go later after finishing the washing? Lucia glared at her coldly. So now you want to tell me how to run my house? No, Then leave now. Tariro quickly wrapped her thin sweater tightly around herself and started walking down the dusty road. The morning air was cold, but the journey ahead felt even colder. As she walked past neighboring homes, some villagers watched her sadly. That child is always walking alone, one woman whispered. And she looks thinner every day, another replied quietly. But nobody openly challenged Joram's family. Fear and respect for wealth kept most people silent. The road to Namamwa stretched endlessly beneath the hot sun. Dust rose around Tariro's feet while heavy trucks occasionally passed by, leaving clouds of dirt covering her clothes. Her stomach growled painfully. She had eaten nothing that morning. Halfway through the journey, she sat briefly beneath a tree to rest her aching legs. Nearby, school children passed wearing clean uniforms and laughing together. Tariro lowered her eyes quickly. Watching them reminded her too much of the life she had lost. One small girl from the group recognized her. Tariro, she called happily. When are you coming back to school? Before Tariro could answer, another child whispered quietly. She no longer goes to school. The laughter faded awkwardly as the children continued walking. Tariro remained beneath the tree feeling shame burn inside her chest. After several more kilometers, she finally reached the shops. The shopping bags felt heavy in her small hands as she began the long walk home. The sun now burned fiercely overhead. Sweat covered her face. Her feet ached badly inside her torn shoes. Still, she kept walking. She knew Lucia would be angry if she returned late. As she crossed a muddy section of road near a small stream, her foot suddenly slipped. Tariro crashed heavily onto the ground. The cooking oil bottle flew from her hands and shattered against rocks. For a moment she simply sat there frozen in shock. Golden oil spread across the dirt while broken glass glittered beneath the sunlight. Fear slowly filled her chest. Lucia would never believe it was an accident. Tariro quickly gathered the remaining groceries and hurried home as fast as she could. By the time she reached the homestead, the sky had already begun turning orange. Lucia stood waiting near the gate. What took you so long? I slipped near the stream, Tariro explained breathlessly. The cooking oil. Before she could finish, Lucia grabbed the shopping bag and saw the missing bottle. Her face darkened with rage. You useless child. I am sorry. The first slap landed hard across Tariro's face. Then another. Joram stepped outside just as Lucia picked up a belt hanging near the doorway. You break food bought with money while you walk around carelessly. Lucia shouted. The belt struck Tariro's back painfully. Again. And again. The child cried loudly while trying to protect herself. Please. But Lucia continued beating her until red marks covered her arms and legs. Finally Joram spoke quietly. That is enough. Breathing heavily, Lucia stepped back. Maybe next time she will learn. Tariro stood trembling with tears streaming down her face. Her body burned with pain. But even worse was the humiliation. That night Lucia refused to give her supper. "You can sleep hungry," she said coldly. "Maybe hunger will teach you responsibility." The family ate chicken stew inside the dining room while Tariro sat alone outside near the kitchen wall. Cold wind moved through the yard as darkness covered the village. Her stomach twisted painfully from hunger. Inside the house she could hear laughter, plates moving, and television sounds. Nobody called her inside. Nobody cared that she was cold. Later that night Lucia locked the kitchen doors before sleeping. Too weak to cry anymore, Tariro slowly walked toward the storage room. But when she reached the door, she discovered it had been locked from outside. Fear filled her chest. "Am I?" she called softly. No answer came. Tariro realized they had left her outside for the night. Shivering badly, she curled herself beside the wall using an old sack for warmth. Above her, dark clouds slowly covered the stars. Tears rolled silently down her cheeks as cold wind swept through the yard. And alone beneath the freezing Zimbabwean night, little Tariro finally understood something painful. Inside the house where she was born, she was no longer treated like family at all.